Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura, and this week on the show, we're going to be talking all about naming your business and naming stuff in your business. So if you get stuck with what to name things, then this episode of the show is very much for you. Before I get into that, a couple of updates from my side of things, the personal side of things. I am going to be taking a 2-week midsummer break for the show. So there's going to be no episodes over the next 2 weeks. I think I've mentioned a few times on the show, we are having some renovation work done in our home, and our new office is almost there. And I want just to have some time just to get that sorted out, because once I get in the office, it's going to make recording episodes of the show a bit easier. I haven't really been able to batch. I haven't been able to have guests because I've had builders in, and for the sound and all of that kind of jazz, it's been really difficult to get episodes of the show recorded and things like that. So I'm going to just take 2 weeks off. It's midsummer. I think I take 2 weeks off at Christmas, at midwinter. So this feels like a really good time to take some time off. So I'm going to take a couple of weeks off the show, and then I will be back with some more excellent content. I'm sure you guys will agree. I'll be back with some more excellent content then, and probably a bit of behind the scenes update as well on the second quarter of the year as well. So yes, so stay with me. I will be back in 2 weeks' time, and I'm probably going to take some time off Instagram as well. I've got loads of things I could say about Instagram at the moment, but anyway, I will save that for another episode of the show. So let's get into naming your business. So we're going to start off with talking about actually naming your business. It's a question I get asked loads in my work as a business mentor, especially obviously when I'm working with new coaches, is what should I call myself and my business? And this is basically what I say to everybody. This is what I would always say, because I think there's a few kind of things that you want to think through. So you've got 3 options when it comes to naming your business. You can go with your actual name, you can go with a business kind of like a brand name, or you can go with a hybrid. So obviously your name is your name. It's a good option to go with. It gives you lots of flexibility, so that if you pivot or change your business, it means that you don't necessarily have to change your domain name. And speaking from someone who has had that experience, guys, it is a right faff. If you can avoid having to change your domain name, I would recommend that, because it is a bit of a faff. It's not impossible, it's just a bit of a faff to do so if you wanted to protect the existing like SEO stuff that you've built up over the years, for example. So yes, so that's something just to bear in mind with that as well. So going with your name gives you maximum flexibility to pivot, because you're always going to be you. Obviously you want to bear in mind that if you might have a name change coming up as well, potentially you might want to have that in the back of your head as well, that might happen, and whether or not you would just keep your kind of professional like the name that you've been using the same. So that's something to consider. And also it's really good for connection. When you're a coach and people are working with us, we are the product, for want of a better way to describe it. Like, we are the person who people are going to be working with. So going with your name, I think, can make a lot of sense from that point of view, because it really helps with that connection too. Also, you just want to be aware, one of the kind of the downsides of going with your name, depending on what your name is, whether or not you can get hold of things like social media handles and domains match your name that someone else already hasn't got. So it really depends on how popular your name is and how common your name is as to whether or not this is going to work. So that's the first option. And then the second option is to go with a brand name. So my previous business name was actually not my previous business. So when I was a health coach, my business name was Uniquely Healthy, and my limited company is still called Uniquely Healthy. I still need to change it, and I trade as Wholeheartedly Laura. But that's an example of a brand name rather than obviously my own name. So if you go with the brand name, this can be really helpful because it instantly communicates what your brand's about. Like, Uniquely Healthy is pretty fairly obvious what I was doing at the time. So that can be really powerful, the fact that it instantly says what it is that you do. It can also potentially, depending on what it is that you choose, be easier to find like things like domain names and social media handles as well, potentially. Obviously the downside is that you don't necessarily have that instant connection with you. It's almost the brand is, I don't know, sometimes I wonder, is part of it like that we are kind of sitting behind that brand is what is leading, and we're sitting behind that a little bit. And I think from that point of view, one of the potential benefits of that is, if in the future, and this is very uncommon in coaching businesses to be fair, but if you wanted to sell the business in future, then having a brand name means that you could do that. It would be much harder obviously to do that from if you were going with your own name, for example. So that's something to bear in mind. Not very many coaches are in this to build a business and then sell it, but it's just one of those things to bear in mind from that point of view. And then the other thing to think about is a hybrid name. So obviously my business name right now is Wholeheartedly Laura, and that's a bit of a hybrid name. And I obviously quite like that. That's why I've chosen it. I like it because I feel like it brings a bit of both options into the mix. I feel like wholehearted is a brand word for me. It really is one of the words that helps communicate what I'm about and the way that I do things and the way that I try and show up. So I like that's there, and it just makes sense for me as a business name, and it feels really good. So I have had lots of business names, lots of brand names and business names in my 10 years, coming up as 10 years as a coach. It's been all sorts of different things. So it's been for so many different things, like uniquely healthy, wholeheartedly healthy, which is what morphed into wholeheartedly Laura. And again, the reason I did that was because my business was pivoting and the healthy thing didn't feel like the right word anymore. So this is something, again, just to bear in mind if you're looking at these different name options. And obviously you can't predict the future, and what I want to say is that with all of this stuff, nothing is set in stone. There's nothing that is so drastic. Yes, it can be a faff to change a business name. There's nothing so drastic that it becomes a serious issue if you decide at some point to change your name. It's totally fine, don't worry about it. So it's not something, like what I would say to all my clients is like, you don't procrastinate over this for ages. Don't let it become something that stops you moving forward. You're much better off just cracking on and getting it done and moving forward with it than if you were spending ages trying to find the perfect name, because your business is going to change, you're going to change, and you can't foresee that. So I think you just need to take the best option and go with it as well. So yes, a hybrid name I feel can be a good option for some people as well. If I was starting over, I'd probably go with my name. I think one of the reasons I haven't changed wholeheartedly over to my name is again because of the headache of domains and SEO. And to be fair, I quite like wholeheartedly Laura. And again, I think it communicates something about me and my business and just makes me slightly different. So I'm quite happy with that, basically. And then once you've perhaps got like a short list of business names that you want to explore, what I would suggest that you do is run it through a series of checks. So these are the checks that I would recommend. First of all, Google the name and see what comes up. What you're looking for here is you wanting to see, is anyone already trading with that name and running, doing something with that name? Are they really similar to you? Could there be some confusion? Could there be like a trademark issue, which we're going to get into in a sec? And just Google it and see what comes up, basically. And then you want to check if the domain's available. Now, what a lot of people find these days is that they will not be able to get hold of the .com. What tends to happen is a lot of people buy up the .coms and then try and sell them. So they're not actually active. So what I would always do is put in the businessname.com and see what is there. Now, if it's just a domain holding page, it probably means that someone has bought up these domains and they're hoping that someone's going to try and buy it off them, basically. And that's fine. If that's the case, then you're totally fine going for the domain name with a .co. That seems to be quite popular. There's a proper name for the bit that comes after. There's a proper name for the bit that comes after, like the words, the dot in web addresses. And I can't for the life of us remember. The .co is quite popular and you can go for that. That's absolutely fine. You could have .biz, you could have .co.uk if you're based in the UK or whatever. It's totally up to you. I tend to think if you're not going to go with the .com, like the .com is what I would go for if you can. If you can't go with the .com, go with the .co. If you're working internationally online, if you already know that you're just going to work in your country, then whatever your country's thingy is, because I can't think of the right name for it, the thingy at the end. Whatever that is, go for that. So yeah, so you can have a look at that and see. And again, it's just looking to see if no one else is active on any domains of what it is that your business name is, then I think you're totally fine going ahead with what it is that you've got. Then you might want to check if social media handles are available. So again, this is just part of your search. Is someone else operating with a similar social media handle, and are they in a similar niche? You just want to, so basically you just want to check social media to see if anyone else is operating. And if you can get the handle that you want, okay. Sometimes what you'll find is that you can't get your social media handle to match your domain, and that's fine. Sometimes you have to have a slightly different social media handle. Again, we're at the point where these social media sites have got so many users. We're at the point now where we are having to add like little underscore and things like that sometimes to make them work. But if you can avoid that, then that's great. If not, it's okay. Don't stress about it. And then you want to check with Companies House if you're in the UK and trademark registers. Now, again, depending on where you're based, you want to check whatever registers of companies or trademarky things, whatever that is in place in your country. Obviously, a lot of us are working internationally, and you might want to look at what's going on internationally in terms of trademark and stuff. But really, you should be fine if you look at what's going on in your own country. So you want to check and just run your business name through those registers to check that no one else has anything registered that is the same or very similar to that, basically. So if everything's looking good after those checks, it's time to purchase your domain. It is time to grab your social media handles. And if you're planning on registering as a company, then it's time to probably think about doing that, perhaps at that stage. And then you've got everything signed up for. And that is basically a very quick guide to naming your business. And obviously, there's lots of other things that can come into this, but that for me is always been the best kind of process to think about, basically. And then when it comes to naming your products and services, and even things like podcasts and things like that to a certain extent, I was talking to a client recently about her podcast that she started, and we were trying to think of a name. So in the description that goes with this episode, I'm going to add a link to Alexander Frazen's Ultimate Guide to Naming Your Thing, which is a really great, fun guide to how to name stuff. So that's a really great resource. So do check that out. But my kind of like just some quick tips from me when it comes to naming your thing, because I know it can be tricky, and I found this really tricky, and I still find it tricky in my business. So the first thing that you might want to do is brainstorm your brand words. So this can be helpful if you're thinking about, like for my brand, obviously Wholehearted is one of them. I have a slightly like boho witchy aesthetic to my business. Some of my courses like Pinterest Magic and Chant and Challenges have this like slightly like boho-esque thing to them randomly. So it might be things like that. Like my client Alex, who I was chatting to recently, her business is about nature connection and mindful walking, and things like nature connection, mindfulness. Think about what your brand words might be and where you can use those. You're gonna go through some of these tips I'm going to give you, and maybe just have lots of words and start putting things together as well. So that's fine. So the first one is to brainstorm your keywords, and then the second one is to focus on the outcome. So really think about what's the outcome of this product or service. So what is it? Like my Thrive one-to-one mentoring program is called Thrive because the outcome, or one of the many outcomes that I hope people are going to get from that program, is that they are going to have a better sense of what they need to thrive in their business, and that they have put those things in place so that they are thriving in their business and that their business is thriving. So think about what the outcomes are. Another example of a program that has a name that is suggestive of the outcome is a course that I'm in at the moment, which is Hannah Boulevard's Fresh Nest e-course, which is like an interior design decluttering course. And the idea is that you have a fresh nest at the end of it, more or less. But I like that she's got that name for it. So again, that's focused on the outcome. And then another thing that you can consider is to think about the process that you're going to take people through. Is there anything particular about the process? Is it like the 6-week guide to something or other? Like, what is it about the process? Is it the length of time? Is it the way that you teach it? What is it about the process? Is there something there that you can pull out that you can help with the naming situation as well? So another tip is thinking about literally, what is it? Like literally, what is it? Sometimes it can get tied up in knots with names, but can you literally just call it what it is? An example of this is the Hypnobirthing digital pack from the Positive Birth Company, which is a course that I've done when I was pregnant, and it literally is a hypnobirthing digital course pack. Makes sense. So that's another thing that you can consider, is just calling it literally what it is. And then you can also think about what makes the thing different. So what makes your product or service unique or different from where perhaps how other people might approach it, and consider that. And a good example of this is Elizabeth Goddard's course, The Fast Guide to Launching. So again, launching tends to be something that's like big and drawn out, and Lizzie's done it where it's fast. So her program is called The Fast Guide to Launching, and it's really simple. So those are just a few things to start getting your brain whirring when it comes to naming things. And the way that I would approach it is just to sit down and have lots of different words. This is how I've always named things, lots of different words out there, and then start to just put things together into little nuggets or phrases and just see what fits. Honestly, sometimes I look at my courses and programs and think, why have I named things this? And there's a few things I'm going to actually change the name of to better communicate what it is that they're about. I feel like my Super Simple Passive Income program, that's not really what it is. Really what it teaches is how to create a small digital product. And maybe that should be that. So I could change the name of Super Simple Passive Income to Your Guide to Creating a Small Digital Product, or The Coach's Guide to Create a Small Digital Product. There we go. I think I've renamed one of my programs live on the show. So I might change the name of that one. But I hope that this has been helpful when it comes to naming things. Again, just to reiterate what I was saying earlier, if you get stuck, it's worth just choosing something and moving forward. If it's becoming this form of procrastination, it's really useful just to crack on and choose something. And if it has to change in the future, a bit with what I was saying there about the Super Simple Passive Income course, I can just change the name. It's not the end of the world. It can change. It's fine. You're not failing if you haven't changed your name because you didn't get it right the first time. It's totally fine. So I hope that has been useful. Just another reminder, I'm going to have a 2-week break. So there's going to be no episodes of the show next week and the week after. And I will be back after summer solstice or winter solstice if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, of course. I will be back with more awesome coaching related content for you guys. And hopefully, if you're watching on YouTube, this background behind me might change. Well, it bloody better change because I want to be in that office. We desperately just need to get moved into there basically because everywhere's a bit of a tip in our home. So we need somewhere that's sorted. So yes, when I'm back, I should be in the office. But as always, guys, thank you so much for listening, watching, reading. If you've got reading this on the blog as well, please do get in touch with me if this has been helpful. Pop me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Wholeheartedly Laura. Pop me an email, leave a review. That would be always so helpful. It takes 2 minutes on Apple Podcasts if you are listening on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. That will be super helpful. Or leave me a comment and let me know what your thoughts are. So thanks, guys, so much. I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care. Bye.